morning, everybody. Andrew Champagne here alongside JD Fox for a special live edition of Champagne and JD. It's Whitney Day at this place right back here, Saratoga Racecourse. So we wanted to do something special, and we've got something special in store for you. If you're just tuning in for the first time, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for spending part of your Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon or whatever the case may be with us here on Champagne and JD. If you like what we do, go find us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Really helps us out with all those fancy algorithms that the YouTubers that make a living doing that stuff really depend on. At any rate, I said we had something special for you. I'm not blowing smoke when I say that. JD, as always, we've got a great guest, and she needs no introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway because that's just the kind of guy I am. If you follow racing in Dubai, you know this woman. She is outstanding, a tremendous ambassador for racing over there with the Dubai Racing Channel. You may have also seen her writing with Thoroughbred Racing Commentary and some other outlets. Laura King is with us this morning. She is in Saratoga for the first time, and we are thrilled to have her on Champagne and JD. Thank you so much for spending part of your Saturday morning with us, Laura.
Thank you for having me. I love it here. It's amazing. And I'm not sure I can quite live up to that introduction, but hopefully I can give people a bit of info about racing in Dubai because it really is brilliant.
That's for sure. It's a case where racing in Dubai has really evolved lately, especially even over the last 10 years. And we may as well dive right into it. Time is of the essence here because Laura's in Saratoga for a special live show, one of the first ones that they have done. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, we want to talk about the racing scene over in Dubai. And one of the things that we talked about in our pre-show meeting was there are people who seem to think that racing revolves around the carnival. And the carnival's very important, and it's one of those things that the world stops and watches, especially on Dubai World Cup night. But there's a full season of racing over there. It starts in October. Tell us some more about how that's evolved over the past couple of years and what people need to know that maybe they don't.
So I think what a lot of people don't know is obviously Dubai's in the UAE. Dubai is just a part of it, one of the 7 Emirates. We actually have 5 tracks in the UAE. So everyone knows Meydan. It's beautiful. It's glitzy. It's huge. But we have 4 other tracks as well. So we race, most we'd ever race is 4 times a week. Some weeks we only race maybe twice a week. And the tracks all sort of take their turns. So we have Meydan, we have Jebel Ali, we have Sharjah. They only race there maybe 7 times a year, 7 days. It's not much. And we also have Abu Dhabi as well and Al Ain, they're a little bit further away from Dubai. So yeah, it's a big scene from when we start at the end of October right the way through until April when we're wrapping up in 2022. So we have to condense it into the 6 months because obviously it's a little bit too hot in the summer to race there.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about obviously being in the UAE, one of the things that people in the US always wonder and how it's like to cover racing when there's not a predominant wagering focus is obviously in the UAE, there's no gambling on the races.
It definitely makes the race day experience different. There's no getting away from that. I mean, normally you might watch the horses in the paddock. You will then go and place your bet and you'll go and watch the race. The second element of that is missing. There may be a little bit of informal wagering goes on. I don't know anything about that. Maybe that happens. But there's no bookmaker, no tote, nothing like that. So you don't see the huge amount of space that's taken up at most tracks with windows and things. We don't have that. From my point of view, covering it makes it way better. Because instead of having to fill my program with shows of betting, with numbers, I can make really nice stories. I can focus on the fluffy stories, the human interest stories. I can do a piece on a horse that maybe has no chance in the race, but it's a nice story and people aren't completely focused around gambling. So from my point of view, it actually makes it easier.
Sure. Now, JD and I are both gamblers. It's who we are, but at the same time, I'm a journalist by trade. JD went to journalism school too. So the aspect of being storytellers and getting those stories out to the masses, that cannot possibly be understated. It's one of the most important things we can do as ambassadors for the game, telling these kinds of stories. What are some of the ones that you've been able to tell over in Dubai that have really stood out that you look back on and say, I'm really proud of that?
We have so many great stories. Last year, I sort of launched a new little series on our channel, and it was to do with, we launched a Groom of the Month award with Albassi Equiworld, or rather they launched it and we helped them with it. And some of the grooms have fascinating stories. One of the guys, he's from Kenya. he would go, he started going to the track there when he was like maybe 12 years old. He would go after school, he would help out. He really wants to become a jockey, but it's not that easy to make the transition. He's now a groom/work rider. There's so many fascinating stories. And we also have a lot of people in Dubai who are work riders who were successful jockeys a few years ago, a lot of them with Godolphin. They have some of the best work riders, that you can get. A lot of them have ridden grade ones and things like that. So I think there's some really great stories. And for me, the horses themselves are beautiful. The whole sport is visually so enticing. I'd rather not cover it up with graphics and numbers and things. I think it does detract from what you see and just the pure element of racing. I think it's important to just let that beauty out really and not cover it up with a load of numbers.
Yeah, that's definitely something that obviously, even with the same sponsor, we have similar groom awards, but really it's kind of in passing. We don't necessarily hear the stories behind them. So I think that's something, locally we can do better on. And really, I think one of the things that when we get stories from Dubai, I mean, everybody pays attention in that carnival time that we talked about. But, what are some of the things that you're trying to do to get these stories out there when I don't want to say the non-traditional season is, because it's the 6 months, it's the traditional season for you and what you do on a day-to-day basis. But what kind of things have you tried to do, and what kind of things have worked over the last couple of years to really get the word out when it's not the carnival?
It feels for me like our quality racing starts earlier and earlier each season. So we used to have a very, very kind of condensed season of, as I said, of the better races. But because the carnival's risen in quality, the local trainers, if they want to prop their good horses, their potential World Cup night horses, maybe their Godolphin Mile horses, they'll probably have to give them a run in November, December. So although we only race every 2 weeks at Meydan up until Christmas, there's a good meeting in December. We have a couple of listed races. You'll see potentially your World Cup horses come out then. We even had Gronkowski, who was second in Dubai World Cup. He reappeared then. So it feels like it starts earlier each year with regards to the older horses. But something else that's evolved in the last maybe 5 years, it's quite new. We've had a 2-year-old program. We never had that before. We always had the classics, the UAE, Guineas, Derby, Oaks. But they predominantly were for horses who came over from Europe, chiefly with Godolphin. Now, about 5 years ago, they introduced a 2-year-old program. So we have horses that are bought here, maybe at the Breeze Ups here. And we get them in Dubai. They arrive around about now, maybe August, September. They'll often be purchased here. They'll go to a farm, then they'll come. And then we'll see them racing right from the first meeting at Meydan, which is on November the 4th this year. And so on November the 4th, we have a Meydan, unraced horses. Any of those could end up in the UAE Derby. And for me, that's really, really exciting. And another thing we've seen in recent years is horses that have been successful locally coming back to race in the States, which I love. And none of them have really managed to make an impact over here just yet that have come back, but it's only a matter of time before one does.
Sure. So a couple of things that stand out there. You mentioned that some horses need a run before Dubai World Cup night. We're even seeing that with some American conditioners shipping their horses over to Dubai early. We saw it with Curlin before his Dubai World Cup win. We saw it with California Chrome before his World Cup win, where the saddle slipped several strides before the wire, and it didn't matter because that horse was just a freak that night and nothing was beating him. But it's interesting to say that because even from an American standpoint, shipping horses over there early, getting them acclimated, getting them used to the surroundings is so huge. And of late, we're also seeing American trainers having regular strings over there on a regular basis. You've got Doug O'Neill, who had a bunch of horses over at Meydan this past year. And one of the best trainers in Dubai is actually someone that a lot of American horse trainers are familiar with, a guy by the name of Doug Watson, who I believe was a primary assistant to Kieran McLaughlin, among other people. So certainly a little bit of an influence there. And it's nice to see such a global game converging on Dubai, not just for Meydan, but for the entire season.
Yeah, we're so lucky. Like, our trainers are really cosmopolitan. I mean, you mentioned Doug Watson. He's, I think, now 7-time champion trainer with us. You're right, he was assistant to Kieran McLaughlin. He's the most popular guy. Everyone loves him. He's such a great guy. And he actually drove the ambulance at the first ever Dubai World Cup, which is quite amazing. And now he's gone on and had winners on the big night. So he gets quite a lot of horses from the States. I think I can understand why people would naturally send one to Doug. Also, Satish Seema, who's 6-time champion trainer, he gets quite a lot of horses from the States as well. We have Salim bin Gidea, who chiefly trains for His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed. He gets horses from here as well as from the UK. So our top trainers are kind of a mix of nationalities, but the local trainers, the Emiratis, are really coming through strongly now. And it won't be too long before we have an Emirati champion trainer, which would be great. We haven't had one just yet, but that will happen certainly soon. So it's going back a few years since the last time we had a local champion trainer, but it's really competitive at the moment, and that's fantastic.
I got to jump in because you mentioned Satish Seemar, and we can't talk about him without talking about one of my favorite horses on the Dubai racing scene, Ronaldo the Wizard, a horse that started his career in America, actually, went over to Dubai, and all he did was, I believe, win a couple of versions of the Golden Shaheen and run for a very, very, very long time. Talk about the grand old man of Dubai racing. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, he's amazing, Ronaldo. He went on, as you say, he raced until he was 11. I saw him maybe a month ago. He's retired. He's in Newmarket in the UK. He's with Godolphin Lifetime Care. They flew him over there. And the funny thing is, when he moved to the UK, he went to the Godolphin sales yard. They thought, we'll just put him here for a little bit. They fell in love with him. They've kept him. He's the only permanent resident of the Godolphin sales yard. They just can't bear to part with him. He has this amazing stallion paddock. He's a gelding. It's amazing paddock. He's sport rotten. He's such a happy horse. And I can't speak highly enough about Godolphin Lifetime Care and what they do, and that they took Ronaldo. It's just brilliant. He's a rock star. And I went to see him and I was like, lovely to see you. And he gave me a big, big, big bite. And I thought, he's still nipping. He's still the same old Ronaldo.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
All right. Well, we talked about obviously a beloved horse traveling from UAE to the UK. You made a big trip here to the United States. So just curious for those tuning in, how many tracks in the US have you been able to visit, Laura?
My first one was Santa Anita. I think Breeders' Cup, maybe 2012, possibly. If that was the Santa Anita year. I've done Santa Anita a couple of times for Breeders' Cup. I've done Churchill Downs for Derby, Breeders' Cup, Del Mar Breeders' Cup, Keeneland Breeders' Cup, Belmont for the Belmont, which was Justify's year, which was one of the best ever days I've had on a racetrack. And Saratoga, I've just fallen in love with the place. I could cheerfully live here forever, but I don't think my husband would be too happy if I just stayed.
Yeah, that would seem to be a problem, that's for sure. But look, I'm biased. I'm an upstate New York guy. I lived about an hour and a half south of Saratoga growing up. I wound up living near Saratoga for about 3 years before I moved west. It is an absolutely wonderful place. People seem to think it's this sleepy town for 10 months out of the year that just comes alive for 2 months. And in certain areas, but in others, it's one of the few places in the United States where horse racing's followed by pretty much everybody. And it's one of those things where that really comes to light during the 8 weeks of the Saratoga season. What are some of your first impressions of Saratoga Springs?
You're right. I mean, it's like racing sort of goes right the way through, and you can go to any bar, any restaurant, and they've got the racing on the TV. I got an Uber the other day. I'm staying just a little bit outside, and the guy's like, what do you fancy in this race? That wouldn't happen anywhere else in the world, I don't think. If I got into an Uber in Newmarket, I don't think they'd necessarily want to talk to me about the racing. It's just brilliant. And it's backed up with a really great social scene. I mean, I've only ever seen it during the meet, so I can't really say what it's like in January, but the restaurants here are world class. There's some great nightlife. It's just a really, really fun place to be. And I love it. We've also got the weather as well this year, which certainly helps. And it's a little bit strange for me because I'm not used to going to racetracks where you have this kind of environment where you can bring in your own food and your coolers, and you can sit on a chair all day. We don't really have that in the UK. So for me, that's one of the greatest parts of it, that it is so relaxed. It's not really a dress code. I kind of like that sort of thing. I'm very much like, let's get people racing and enjoying it. I don't think it really matters so much if they're in a suit and tie. It's a really magical place, and I'm just delighted to be here.
Yeah, the thing that, as an outsider to the Saratoga scene, that has never made sense is you show up early, you claim your spot, you set everything up, you get kicked out, and then you get back and then you run to your spot. It's something that's unique, I think, to Saratoga and the Saratoga experience.
The only other place I think they do that is in Japan. On big days there, the Japan Derby, for instance, you'll see they open the gates and they run through. It's absolutely insane. And that might be at like 8 a.m. Here it's the same. I go every morning. I go to the track. I do some interviews, whatever, I leave, and there's people coming in, they're putting their things on the picnic tables, and it's fantastic. It's amazing. We just don't have that in Europe. I wish we did.
Laura, I got to tell you, I miss that. I grew up doing that. I keep telling people the soundtrack to my youth was Tom Durkin over the PA system and Harvey Pack on the recap shows. You remember waking up early, going to the track for morning workouts, leaving your stuff on a picnic table, either going to get breakfast or going across the street to the Hall of Fame, coming back, and then enjoying a day at the races at a picnic table with friends, with family, being able to watch 10 different races from 10 different locations at the track if you wanted to. There's a vibe there that's just unlike any other. And you mentioned the whole, nightlife in January, whatnot. When I worked at the Saratogian, it was in a brick building on Lake Avenue that is now occupied by Walton Whitman Brewing, which is apparently a wonderful place that I'm very much looking forward to going to when I'm there in October. But that was within 100 yards of about 4 or 5 different bars. And when you work from 3:30 to about 11:30 at night, it's very handy to know that you have plenty of options at your disposal if you're not tired and need to unwind somewhere.
That sounds fantastic. Also quite dangerous.
It was great. It was really, really great. And that there are parts of that I miss, but I got to tell you, in the winter, you get the snow, you get the ice, you have to shovel your way out, and it's that much I don't miss at all.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd like it quite so much in January.
That was the winter after I moved was the worst winter in about 20 years, and I was just laughing every time I would get a picture from my dad of the snow. I would send him a screen grab of the weather in Pasadena where I lived. I was about 5 minutes away from Santa Anita at the time. I would send him a screen grab and he would send back some assorted curse word. And I would always laugh wholeheartedly at that because I'm an evil person who enjoys torturing others.
Hence this podcast. No, obviously, we're here for the card today at Saratoga, and obviously you're in town for the card today at Saratoga. And Andrew kind of set this up earlier. Explain what you're doing and what you're broadcasting back from the States for today's festivities.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. We're very lucky with the Dubai Racing Channel. We take feeds from all around the world. So right now we're showing Ascot in the UK and Newmarket, and then later on we'll switch to the coverage here from Saratoga. We take the Fox feed on a Friday, on a Saturday and a Sunday. But this year, what they've decided to do, with it being such a big day, with Godolphin having strong representation with Maxfield and Secret Protector as well, they've decided to do a separate Arabic broadcast. So we'll have people in our studio in Dubai giving analysis in Arabic, and I'll be doing the interviews from here in English, because I don't think there's too many here at the Spa today that speak Arabic, and I certainly don't. So so the idea is to give us an on-course presence. Obviously, while the broadcast we normally take is tremendous, I can just tailor it a little bit more to our audience. So I've done a lot of stuff this week. I've spoken to a lot of trainers and sent those interviews already, so people can enjoy that as part of our coverage tonight. And then I'll be doing live interviews back this evening as well.
Awesome. That's just fantastic. You're going to have a lot of fun. It's a really good card today at Saratoga. We've got 12 races. There's an all-stakes pick 5, races 6 through 10. Cheap plug, if you want to see some analysis on that, go over to Odds Checker US. I've got a column up with a $24 ticket. But we're going to focus on the last 2 races of that sequence. Race number 9 is the Saratoga Derby Invitational. That is indeed a mouthful. And if that doesn't look like quite enough horses there, don't worry. We've got one more on a second page. Bolshoi Ballet is your favorite in this 11-horse field, and for good reason. Laura, I've been saying this ever since this horse ran in the Belmont Derby. We do not see many horses in the United States that went off at 6-5 in the Epsom Derby. It's clear something went wrong that day, was beaten 17 lengths, but came back in the Belmont Derby. The form says he won by 1 1/4 lengths. He could have won by as many as he wanted to. This is a really, really classy racehorse.
Yeah, he's a really good horse. I spoke to TJ Comerford, who's come over with the horse, and I said to him, do you think that this horse has improved since Belmont? And he said, I don't really think he needs to. which I thought was interesting because this is a better race, I think, than the Belmont Derby. We have Secret Protector in there, who's a smart horse himself. Du Jour, I think, could just be a little bit better than he was the last time. It's a really good race. The fact that he said that made me think they've got this. They're pretty confident going in. I was one of those people supporting him at Epsom. I thought he was a really good favourite on that day. He was Aidan's only runner in the Epsom Derby. That's so rare. He got struck into. There's a few excuses, and obviously Epsom's such an idiosyncratic track. There's the camber. There's winning margins could be a little bit exaggerated there. He's better than that 17 lengths, and the fact they brought him over here, I thought was huge. And Ballydoyle, Cornwall's support of this series has been really wonderful. I like him today, but I do think it's a tougher race than last time.
And obviously, both of us had a chance to talk to Kenny McPeek this week, and we were talking about that a little bit, Laura. But everybody's talking about Swiss Skydiver, but King Fury is a very interesting horse, trying the turf for the first time, and a horse, Andrew, I know that you liked until the scratch on Kentucky Derby Day.
Yeah, I thought that horse would love 1.25 miles, still do, and you got to dig a little bit to find it. But there is some turf pedigree on the bottom with this horse. Terrace was a freakish sprinter, but she's a half to a stakes winner on turf. And there's a third dam that was a turf stakes winner as well by Curlin, who could run on turf, dirt, synthetic, broken glass, anything. So it would not be at all surprising if King Fury was able to take to turf. And I personally think a horse you need to throw underneath if you're playing exactas, trifectas, whatever. But you guys were talking to Kenny McPeek, and he's a pretty darn good interview. I'm interested to see if you guys can compare notes about what you heard.
Kenny's just fantastic. I love his support of international racing. He's one of the first Americans ever to take a horse, I think, to the UK. We've had him in Dubai. I've even bumped into him in South Korea where he took a horse. He's just brilliant. It's gonna be tough for King Fury today, isn't it? He's a really, really nice horse. They've campaigned him like he's a really good horse, but taking on these turf specialists, he would have to be a bit of a monster to win this today, I think.
Yeah, and the last horse I'll mention, going out for JP O'Brien, because I'll lose all of my Australian cred if I don't mention State of Rest. Obviously, I see Star Spangled Banner on the pedigree, and I have to mention it. And the other thing, too, the last two races in England before making the move to Ireland, Tom Marquand was aboard. Australian Racing has adopted Tom as Aussie Tom from coming over and racing a Dabe and a couple other horses. So just have to mention that. The pedigree's there, but this horse has only won a maiden in Ireland, probably up against it here. But change of venue and obviously a great trainer like JP O'Brien. But will be interesting to see if this horse can make some moves and maybe get into your exotic wagers. So a big stacked 11 horse field in the Saratoga Derby Invitational today, going 1 mile and 3/16 on the turf. And now for something completely different as we head to race number 10, which is going to be a shortened field, but a great one nonetheless in the Grade 1 Whitney, 1 mile and an eighth on the main track. Knicks Go. Obviously, the overwhelming 6-5 favorite in this race, coming off of the 10 1/4 length score in the Cornhusker at my former home track of Prairie Meadows in Altoona, Iowa, and now makes the leap up to Saratoga. But now 2 races back from running in the Saudi Cup. Knicks Go finally showing some form. And Andrew, do you think this is as simple as Knicks Go, or are you giving Swiss Skydiver a chance here?
First of all, I think the Altoona Chamber of Commerce is writing a thank you note and sending it to your doorstep after that.
They need some help.
Hey,
they had something bad happen a few months ago, so I'm helping them any way I can.
Gosh darn lootly. Now, this is a really good 5-horse field, which I know to handicappers can sound like an oxymoron. But as I said on another program earlier this week, what horse isn't running that should be? This is a darn good group, and it's a case where if any of these horses win, I can't say I'd be surprised because they all have credentials. However, as far as recent form goes, I just think Knicks Go is the class of this field. Knicks Go loves going 1 mile and 1/16, mile and an eighth, going 2 turns. He has shown he is a monster since being transitioned over to the Brad Cox barn. Didn't quite take to the Saudi Cup surface. Fourth that day, beaten 8.5 lengths. Came back, likely needed the Met Mile, and that was a one-turn race with a lot of quirky things that wound up going on. And that's not to degrade Silver State, who wound up winning that race, but Knicks Go went out, set a moderate early pace, and folded like a lawn chair. That's not supposed to happen. That is not the horse that Knicks Go is, and he proved that last time out when he ran a 113 buyer in the Cornhusker. I respect Swiss Skydiver to his inside. She's tremendous. I respect Max Field to his outside, and Laura will talk a little bit more about that one because that's a Godolphin runner there. But if Knicks Go gets out, gets loose on the lead, and is able to run the race he wants to run, I think the race is for second. This is a really good field. You're not going to want to miss the Whitney later today. It's the payoff leg of that all-stakes pick 5. Knicks Go to me looks like the horse to beat in every sense of the word.
I think absolutely. The Knicks Go of last year is not going to be caught here. I do have him on top, but I've got just a small nagging doubt that is he the same horse this year? He didn't beat much last time. We know that. There's just a little bit of me thinks maybe he's a little bit below where he was last year, but I have nothing to back that up. I spoke to Brad yesterday. He's very, very confident. The horse looks amazing. I think a bit of me would like to see him just go and not get caught, but then if he's a stride or two below his best, maybe Maxfield ranges up alongside and grabs it from him. We know he stays well. He's a monster horse. It's such a great race. How can a 5-runner race be this good? But it really
I know, right? It's Saratoga. That's one of the great things about this place.
Yeah, it's amazing. 4 out of 5 of them are grade 1 winners already. Yeah, it's a super race.
Yeah, my one trepidation with Knicks Go is I do feel like Brad Cox tried to find a spot last time out where he could use Lasix for this horse. And now only horse in the field taking the Lasix off. I'm just curious to see how the horse performs with that change. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see. This horse is going to be out on the front, and I think from talking to Kenny McPeak, one of the things with Swiss Skydiver is, will Swiss Skydiver, get too far behind Knicks Go? One of the things Kenny McPeak has said on repeat this week is what Swiss Skydiver is all about is hitting those 12-second 200-meter times, just 12s. And the other interesting thing here, gets a Rad Ortiz up. He's told me that if Robbie Alvarado was up here, this would still be Robbie Alvarado's mount. Robbie's not here for this race. Happy with Irad, even though this is not a normal jockey trainer combo. If you look on your form, there's a gigantic 0 next to it. So it is a unique combination taking the task. But obviously, we're making a big deal of this, Laura, because handicap conditions have basically gone the way of the dodo bird in the United States. So when we have a filly at this level running against the boys, especially in a 4-year-old year, we occasionally see it in a 3-year-old year, but we rarely see it in a 4-year-old year. It's something special here. And that's obviously different than what you see covering international racing to us overseas. Can you talk about, from being around the track, the buzz on Swiss Skydiver in this race, and what if you think she's got a fighting chance to compete against the boys here?
She's all about the upset, isn't she? That's just what she does. She kind of pops up and wins when we don't expect it. She's a fighter. They have had a really tough time with her, obviously, this year with the enforced quarantine and everything. I was talking to Kenny and his team the other day, and they were saying, I don't think people really realize what a problem it was because they had this enforced quarantine. They had to train the horses at a different time. They then had to feed them at a different time. And that puts a huge strain on everything. Horses are routine animals. They're used to doing things in the mornings. They're having to do everything a lot later. It really does make life difficult. Anyway, they're happy they've got her back. She's just a beauty. She was the first horse I saw. When I arrived the other day, I was standing outside their barn at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and she came out, and you're like, wow. And I can see her winning this. I really can. I don't think she's getting a great deal of credit. And most people I've spoken to are like, nah, I think she can win it. I kind of think any of them can win it, to be honest. I don't think it's as simple as Knicks Go just goes. She's well in there with a shot, and I just love everything that Kenny's about, really. He likes to keep his horses in training. He never ever shirks a tough race. He's like, this is a tough race, I'm going for it. Maybe she even stays in training next year. That would be just wonderful. She can certainly win this.
Yeah, I picked Swiss Skydiver second, and I think it's going to be fascinating going into that first turn. Nixco has a lot of early speed. I think he's the main speed. But if Gerard Ortiz Jr. wants to play a little bit of chess, he may well go just a little bit more than usual, try to send Nixco a little bit wider going into that first turn. And if Nixco needs to spend a little more energy clearing, maybe that opens the door, if not for Swiss Skydiver, then for somebody else. This is going to be a real rider's race here. I mean, we've talked about the 3 horses on the outside. All Silver State's done is win 6 in a row. All By My Standards has done is win $2.2 million. This is going to be so much fun to watch. I'm really looking forward to this. The Whitney has a special place in my heart. When I was a kid, I went, saw Barons and Victory Gallop duke it out in one of the best races I have ever seen. My first big score involved Left Bank, who won the Whitney and unfortunately passed away a couple weeks later, I believe, due to colic. But horse that wound up winning the finale was a turf stakes winner named River Rush, ridden by one Richard Migliori, which I have reminded him about a couple of times. Hit that double, and that $70 return was a lot for a 13-year-old kid at the time. But I'm a Saratoga guy. The Whitney is one of the coolest races on the calendar, and this year it certainly lives up to the billing. It goes as race number 10 of 12 on the Saturday program. Post time is 5:48 p.m. Eastern time, 2:48 p.m. for those of us here on the West Coast. And yeah, if you're keeping track, it's 6:40 out here on the West Coast. And don't worry, it's Diet Coke in this thing. Don't worry, it's not like a Bloody Mary or anything like that. You know, need a little encouragement to get out of bed this morning. But a card like this will do it for you.
Yeah, no, it's quick. I'm on the quick turnaround because obviously the Missile Stakes at Royal Randwick was last night, and kind of it's the first graded stakes race of the new season as we turned over the calendar on August 1st. But I'm happy to be discussing a great card at Saratoga, and that leads us to our final thought segment. Obviously, Laura, you've been doing a lot on social media this week in the lead up, and there's a lot of great information that folks can view from both something that might help them, make a wager, but also some more human interests about the horses and the people around it. Go ahead and plug away where people can follow you, where people can find you, and something you're especially proud of this week that you want them to go out of their way to watch.
Yeah, you can. Thanks very much. Yeah, you can follow me on Laura King DXBeers. It says there on Twitter. There's a few interviews on there that I've done this week. That chat with Kenny McPeak's on there. Also, Chris Connett of Godolphin gives us the lowdown on Secret Protector, who runs in the Derby today, and then they have Creative Flair goes in the Saratoga Oaks set tomorrow. So there's a few bits and bobs on there, a few videos. I just try and put most of my things out on Twitter. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm not quite so good with Instagram. Twitter's my thing. And you can follow Dubai Racing Channel as well. And obviously on there we have a mixture of content. Quite a lot of my stuff's on there as well.
All right. So is this the year that Southampton's going to move up the ladder? Or are you guys going to be looking at relegation again? I'm very curious.
We don't even start yet. I don't want to think about relegation yet. To be honest, I don't know what happened last season. We started so well. We thought we were going to Europe and the wheels came off big time. Danny Ings has left us. We're not starting the season in great shape, but I'd be confident we avoid relegation. But we're a big club. We should probably be aiming a little bit higher than just avoiding relegation.
Well, as a longtime Portsmouth supporter and former owner, I know all about relegation. So it's okay if it happens. You still can have fun with your team if it happens. Just saying that. Just going.
Yeah.
Hang on. Former owner?
So basically, the team was going to die, and the fan group came up with certificates that could be purchased, and the fans actually owned the club for about 6 years before then sold it to the former head of Disney, Michael Eisner.
Wow, I did not know that.
Wow, geez, I never knew you were that kind of a businessman with a diversified portfolio.
I mean, I spent $100. It's not like I'm.
It sounds good.
Did you get anything when it got sold?
No.
You needed a better contract or a better agent or something.
Maybe. Final thought, Andrew. We obviously want to let Laura get on with an exciting day at Saratoga here.
Sure. So the final thought that I've got is a shout out to a couple of people at NYRA and in the Saratoga community. You may have seen this if it was in my if you saw my bankroll section, but if you didn't, it's worth repeating. Andy Serling, Anthony Stabile, Kirk Wyckoff from Three Diamonds Farm, and Louis Lazanero, among others, were the driving forces behind a mini golf match earlier this week up in Lake George at a place called Goonie Golf, where my dad and I have played a number of rounds over the years because we vacationed up there every summer. They wound up raising more than $100,000 for various backstretch charities that do a lot of amazing work within the racing community. And seeing that brought a smile to my face for a lot, and I mean a lot of reasons. Kudos to everybody that was involved with that. I mentioned that that was the best thing I had seen all week, and it may well be the best thing that I see all meet as far as just triumph of the human spirit kind of stuff. And if for some reason Andy Serling is watching this, Andy, if you keep doing this stuff, people are going to realize you're actually a pretty good dude, and your stick on air isn't going to work. You got to be smarter with that stuff, man. Kidding aside. Awesome job, everybody involved. Kudos. I can't speak highly enough of the efforts on Monday. That was really fun stuff.
No, great cause there. I'll quickly say this is one of my favorite days of the year at Woodbine. It's two quirky races. It's the 5 furlong 3-year-old turf spectacular, as we like to say. Georgian Bay, the race that's it's going to be race 3 for the fillies. And then later in the card, going to race number 9, the Lake Huron for the boys at Woodbine today. Should be exciting. Got some great pedigrees and some horses making first-time starts in 2 great 3-year-old turf races at Woodbine. Andrew, take us home.
All righty. Laura, thank you so much for spending part of your Saturday morning with us. Best of luck today at Saratoga. I know you're going to do amazing work on air. Tremendous shout out to those at the Dubai Racing Channel. Laura, thank you so much again. We really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. I just hope I managed to get a few winners right.
No kidding. We'll absolutely have you back for Dubai World Cup night when that comes rolling around, or anything else in Dubai you want to promote. You have an open invitation here. We really appreciate you stopping by and spending part of your time with us. And if you've been watching this on this Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon or whenever you happen to catch it, we appreciate your time as well. Thank you very much for spending some time with us here as we preview Whitney Day at Saratoga. Again, if you like what we do, go on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Make sure you don't miss any of our weekly updates. For JD Fox, for Laura King, I'm Andrew Champagne. Stay off the beaches, everybody.